Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to tutorial number 9 for Rhinoceros. Today we are going to talk about generating different bolts. Well, in this occasion, we are going to use a plugin instead of designing our bolts right from the beginning. And this is a very common way to use plugins on Rhinoceros that will help us save time and use all these wonderful plugins that are on the web right now, and they're very useful. So the very first thing you have to do is go to the following website. It's called McVan Aerospace, and download the BoltGen. Okay, the BoltGen is a plugin that we are going to install in Rhinoceros. It's going to help us create our bolts. If you have Schoology open, well, you can always go to tutorial 9 to our assignment and download it from there. I already created your assignment with the file or the plugin that you need to install. Okay, now download and save the BoltGen plugin wherever you like, and try to unzip it. Okay, you can right click on it and just click on extract BoltGen, and you're going to copy this file, the BoltGen, and you're going to paste it right into our plugins. So we're going to go to C, program files. We're going to look for Rhinoceros. This is the one that we have, the folder called plugins, and we are just going to drop it in this big list of plugins and all these things. Okay, you're going to click on continue, and we are going to add the BoltGen to our file. Okay, very good. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to open Rhinoceros, and we are going to install our plugin. We're going to go to Tools, Options, and we are going to click on Plugins. Okay, now we have all the list of plugins, and the idea is that we actually install a new one. So we're going to click on Install, look for our plugin. Remember that we have it under the Rhinoceros plugins. And we're going to click on BoltGen. Okay, now it says yes, it's loaded, enabled, and we're going to click on OK. So on the left top corner, you should see BoltGen loaded. Okay, now we're going to start playing with these bolts and creating different types of bolts. Okay, there are many types of bolts and screws. In order to understand this, let's look at a table, or let's look at this image where you see two types of bolts. Sometimes you're going to find the metric bolt gauge, and you're going to find the inch bolt. On the top, you see that everything is in fractions of an inch. So you have 632, you have 1/4, 1/4 28, 5/16, 5/16 24. So you have different types of bolts. You have fine and you have coarse, and of course the same on the metric. You have 4 mm, 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters. This 6 millimeters is the diameter of the bolt. Okay, and each of these bolts has, of course, a diameter that can be metric or it can be in inches, and it also has a pitch. The pitch is the distance between the two rails. Okay, so if we look at other pictures, let's see, this distance between threads, this distance is actually the pitch. Okay, so we're going to find many types of bolts with many types of pitches. Okay, Now, our design or our plugin will allow us to choose between the English and the metric unit conversions measurements. It is up to you to understand which one to use. Here in Colombia, you can to the hardware store and choose either metric or inches or the English version. So let's go back to our rhinoceros and let's see how the BoltGen works. Now the BoltGen, just type in BoltGen and we are going to start our format. So it's pretty easy. We say select English or metric. Okay, let's select metric. Now here we can decide the different forms. We can design from bolt with threads blocks, bolt no thread blocks, or inside thread cutter. Now you're going to play with this later on. You're going to select all of them. I'm just going to start with a bolt with the threads. In some designs, you don't want to use the threads because it will use a lot of data in your designs and it will take longer to actually renderize or to open a file. So sometimes you use it without threads. I'm going to click on bolts with threads and here I have a list of all the metric system bolts that I have, starting with 1 millimeter diameter times 0.2. This 0.2 means this is the pitch, okay? Now some of them that are very common and they're used in small and many of the projects is 3 millimeter 0.5 pitch. This is the STD, which is the standard. This 3 millimeter and 0.35 is not standard. So let's start with the most standard bolts. Select 3 times 0.5 pitch, and here I choose the head style. Okay, now I can choose the socket thread cap screw, the pan head, the hex head, flat head machine, oval head machine. You will do this later on in this activity. But for now, let's start with the socket thread cap screw. Here I can choose the type of driver. How do I want to fasten these bolts? I want to use an Allen wrench or I want to use a Torx wrench. Let's say I want to use the Allen wrench. And finally, I can choose the length of my screw. It says a minimum of 1 millimeter and I'm going to choose 10, which is a very normal size. I can choose 10 or I can use 8 millimeter length, which is also very standard. Okay? If we go to a conversion table, let's open millimeters to inches, and let's say that an inch, or let's change this a little bit, and let's say 1 inch is 25 millimeters. Okay? So about half an inch would be 12.7 millimeters. That's half an inch. So this is pretty much a very standard size or length. Okay, so if we have about half an inch, it's about 12.7 millimeters. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in our length. Let's say 12.7 millimeters, which is a very standard size, or 12 millimeters, okay? So right now, he's gonna start building the design, building the screw, and creating the screw socket, okay? And there you go. We have a screw, which is the actual standard size, the standard way, and now all your designs can have the same size and you can make your designs with the holes needed for this, okay? Now you understand if you're going to use a 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter bolt, okay? This is in the metric system. If we want to create another screw, but on the English system, okay, we're talking about 3 millimeter, and 3 millimeter would be, if I change this to millimeters, 3 millimeters 0.11811 inches. Okay, so let's see if we can make that. Let's create another bolt. And now I'm going to choose the English format. I'm going to create bolt with threads. And here I have all the sizes. Okay, so I have 1 and 3 inches, starting with a very small one. Okay, 1/64, 1/72, 2/56. All of them are in fractions. Okay, so let's try to change this into a fraction. Okay, so we have, we know that our bolt, okay, is pretty much near these two. So we have 632 is probably very close to 4 millimeters. So let's change that 0.11 that we have, 0.11811, which is in inches. This would be inches. Let's change this to a fraction. And changing to a fraction is very easy. You just have to multiply by 100 and divide by 100. And that way you can start simplifying and you will get to the fraction. In this case, let's just use a simple calculator. Since this is not a math class, we just want our decimals and we want to use technology very efficiently. So I'm going to type in my decimal, 11, okay? And I'm going to calculate what my fraction is. So here it multiplies, of course, by 100,000 and divides by 100,000. That way I can get my decimals. And it's pretty much this, okay? There is no exact number, but let's try to get close to that one, okay? If I go to rhinoceros and I use a fraction such as 632 or 516. Let's see if we have these are very big. Let's see if we have 448. 4 divided 48. Okay, 0.08. I'm looking for our before, right? So I'm looking for 0.118. Let's see, 448, 540, 5 over 40. Okay, 0.125. Well, this is pretty close to the 3 millimeters that I want to get. So in this case, I think I am going to use the 540 in that case. Okay. So I'm going to select the screw diameter, which is 540. I'm going to use the socket head cap screw again. And this time I'm going to use the Torx wrench. That way I can select it. Now, it says the minimum is 0.05 inches. Okay, not even half an inch, not even 0.5 inches. In this case, I'm going to use 0.5 to say that it's half an inch. Okay. So here I should have a very similar screw, okay? Very, very similar screw with a different Torx, with a Torx wrench, okay? As you can see, they probably differ in very few, like probably 1 millimeter of length, okay? And let's see our size. They're pretty much the same, very similar. They're not the same, but they are very similar. And when you want to get the nut for this, you want to buy metric or in inches, okay? Even though they look very similar, they're kind of like the same size. They're not fitted for all the nuts, okay? So it's important that we differentiate when we have one type or the other, even though they look very, very alike. Okay, one is metric and the other one is English. Okay, so now it's your job to work on your own. What you're going to do is that you are going to create one bolt of each type all around your diagram, and you are going to make them of different lengths. Okay, different lengths, starting with half an inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, etc. This would be the length, and in millimeters, the equivalent to that. Okay, so you want to make and start with all your BoltGens. Okay, and we're going to start with the metric system. So with the metric system, you are also going to choose, let's say, bolts with thread blocks. Okay, bolts with no threads. You're going to start playing around with all these and making a comparison. Okay. Okay. After this, you're going to start creating each of these. I would like for you to start doing all the standard bolts, which are standard. You're going to make one of each. Okay. And you're going to do exactly the same with the English version. Now you're going to put them very close to each other, the ones that are very similar. Okay, you're going to put them together, and you're going to differentiate them with your layers. The metric ones are going to be red, and the English version or the English units are going to be in blue. Okay, so that's how you're going to differentiate between the English measurement system and the metric system. Okay, so this is your job, and good luck. I hope you learn a lot about bolts.